right, this one's a tech one. I haven't played this in a while.
We're on Tech Street.
Okay, I need a breather. All right, so what do you think? Sound okay?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk.
Where's the venue where you're performing tomorrow night?
St. Vitus in Brooklyn. So
Greenpoint?
Yeah.
where is it? Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah, Greenpoint Williamsburg.
Like
Yeah.
Blackstone?
I mean, all the way at the end.
That's some good stuff right there. It doesn't fall from the sky for a reason, you know what I mean? Like, it's a good thing.
Derek, how do you feel the next day after going through such an exhilarating performance, like muscle and joint wise, or
Yeah, I mean, I'm
do you live on Advil?
I'm knocking on wood because I don't want to jinx myself. But thus far, I don't have any types of aches, creaks, pains, not drumming related. Maybe for moving my drums, I've injured myself moving drums, never playing them, thank God. But I feel great, man. Like, I'm 46 this year. I feel better now than I ever have playing drums. I really do. I feel better about my playing today than I ever have, you know. And not because of any other reason other than I'm starting to sound the way I must sound. You know, before I was playing fast and, you know, doing the extreme metal thing and whatnot, but I always felt like there was something missing from my playing that now I feel like that I'm starting to really get a handle on, like how to hit the drums and how to get my personality out of the kit, you know. So that's one thing I've been really like trying to focus on in the last couple years, is like just trying to be me, you know. It's a tough thing, you know, because a lot of drummers I talk to, they don't really have a clue, you know, what direction they're running in. You know, we get to a certain point in our life when we get older and we start thinking about different things. And I always grew up in a recording environment, so it was always important to me to have a good sound. But the way drums sound here and the way they sound there are completely different. You know, so I'm trying to put myself out there and trying to hear, you know, what's sonically coming out. And I have a tendency to bash. You know, I don't.
The cymbals and the timing and the melodic, it's definitely melodic the whole way.
Is it? I'm trying. That's
no,
another thing.
It's spot on, man. It's like unbelievable.
That's another thing I've just really been trying to play more melodic and play more with the music as opposed to against it. And, you know, not just play notes for the sake of notes. I mean, I'm starting to find now that I leave more notes out than I play. Like for the stuff that's cycling through my head, I just make a conscious choice not to play that. You know? So that is one thing that's changed lately. Is, you know, is outside of that kind of stuff. It's just really being focused on, you know, how I'm translating to you guys. You know, it's very
like the light switch. Like all of a sudden the feet just go like someone hit a switch and then it just lights out. I'm like,
well, I've been doing it for 25 years, so
oh
you know, that's just the way I've played. And,
you feel it? You're not counting that though. To a certain degree.
I never count.
I was going to say, how the hell can you even?
I mean, it's not that take that back. It's not that I never count. It's just that I try to ingrain myself to feel things maybe a little bit differently than I would have before. So, and then that kind of translates into being able to have a more direct approach to my playing. You know, a lot of guys that aren't familiar with hearing blast beats, for example, you know, it just sounds like a bunch of notes going by, you know? And close that so it saves my battery. So the one thing that I've been thinking about, because like to me, when I hear drummers blast, and I hear these grooves, man, even though it's a million miles an hour, I'm depending on what the guitar is doing, depending on what the band is doing, you know, I'm hearing those grooves. And I kind of came up with a way to kind of explain to guys that aren't used to hearing blast beats. It's just a barrage of notes of how to internalize the feel. Because for me, playing fast is no different than playing slow. Right? I'll give you an example. Just take this groove. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like I'm trying to figure out a way to translate like what is normal, what we all get in our head, to all of those notes. So it's not just, you know what I mean? So it's actually got some type of internalized groove going on, you know?
Subliminally almost.
Right, yeah. And that could be, you know, the guitar lines or whatever that, you know, it depends on the type of music, you know, what the rhythm of the music says, you know. But that's the first thing that I hear. I don't hear blah, 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 blah first. I hear that, you know, no matter what the tempo is.
And when somebody gives you a song like those first couple you played, like how long does it take you to put all your drum parts together? It just seems like it's endless changes.
Yeah, that stuff is tough. That is a friend of mine, Rustin Gross, and he and I have been working on this stuff a good many years. You know, just playing. We don't get a lot of chance to jam together, but I always play his songs in clinics because they're so interesting as far as drum transition and parts, and it's just crazy. I think that one song it's got literally like 38 changes in it. You know. Yeah. So I have a photographic memory for riffs. I play guitar. a little bit of background about me. My brother's 10 years older than I am. So when I was 9, he was 18. Here where I'm going. So when he was out of the house at night, when I couldn't play drums, he's a guitar player. So I was sneaking in his room, playing his Fender, and he was out chasing girls. I'm trying to learn Kiss songs on guitar.
So it's like Alex and Eddie.
Yeah, exactly. So I think just learning guitar and having some type of basic theory behind it, and because I've been playing every note in a measure for 25 years, it's really easy for me to transition around. Because normally, those clicks, you can't hear them, but say if the tempo is 200, that click is. So in my ear, I got. But you have to because there's so many upbeats and downbeat drop-ins that I would rather just hear the clicks. I feel it much better instead of having ding 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 ding. It just for me is much better. So I feel it a little more natural.
You have a woodpecker in your ear.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like Woody over here. So anyway, so it came easy. Yeah, man.
Do you use click in the studio?
Yeah. Well, it depends. I never did. I never recorded anything with the click track up until I started doing my Serpent's Rise projects because it was all me. So I had to have some type of guideline, for the riffs and to be able to play.
How about do you chart out stuff to record?
Yeah, well, it depends on how well I know the stuff. The Nile record that I did, we literally recorded drums in 17 hours. So I went in, I would listen to stuff, and all right, then Dallas, the guitar player, would play with me, and I would remember as much as I could, and then we would just punch in from there, and then I'd go more and punch in from there. So
you got to learn it for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's easy nowadays with the modern recording stuff.
Yeah.
So it's so easy just to punch in and slap everything together.
Yeah.
Like back in, when I grew up playing and recording these records, you couldn't really do that. And a lot of the stuff that I recorded on, we actually did on a tape machine. So you couldn't punch in unless it was in a break in the song where you hear it. On these old tape machines, the record head and the erase head are 20 inches away from each other. So as that tape is passing through there, clink, clink, you hear that space. So it was tough to punch in. This is a funny story, actually. When I was in Hayden Eternal, Eric and I had a recording studio together, and we would go on tour, and word got out that we had a studio, right? So all these bands started coming to us like, yeah, man, we want to record with you guys, but we don't want to do digital. Like, yeah, digital. We want to record on tape. We want to do tape. Okay, cool. So Eric and I went over to Morse Sound. We talked to Jim Morse, and we spent a good amount of money on a 2-inch, 24-track Atari tape machine. And we thought, oh, wow, dude, we're going to get some business. And we did. We got business. We booked about 12 different bands that summer to come and record with us. Guess how many bands recorded on it? We did. Believe it or not, there was not one band that booked studio time with us that could come in and play from A to Z in their own songs. So, that's just a product of modern day recording. It's just too easy to get up and go make a ham sandwich in the middle of your tracking, or cruise Facebook or whatever, So it's kind of a different approach nowadays to recording than it used to be. And I grew up in that, having to play from beginning to end and just not caring if there were mistakes. Or not necessarily caring, but that's good enough. Nobody's ever going to notice that. And to me, that's what's missing out of music nowadays. It's like all this stuff I hear is so sterile and so perfect. I'm like, where's the human error? By God, we have enough of it in our everyday life. It should be in our music too. I don't know, but that's just me. So I'm old school like that, I guess. Yeah.
Who had an influence on you when you were younger that made you want to get into it?
I started when I was 4. My dad was my biggest influence because he played guitar. He was a country artist, actually. He had a song on Billboard in the mid-'80s. My mom played piano. My brother plays guitar. My cousin played bass. My uncle was, sax and different horns and stuff. So there's the family first because I was too young to be really exposed to any type of music and know what it was. So the family was my biggest influence first, right? And then because of the musical household, there was a lot of different types of music. My brother being 10 years older than me brought in Kiss, Alice Cooper, Black Sabbath, all of that stuff. My dad and mom were into everything from big band to Mahavishnu to Tower of Power to, so when I was really young, like my biggest influence was like Buddy, Tony Williams, Billy Cobham, like all of those cats, because metal didn't exist. Not really, And then I discovered Kiss, obviously, and Peter Criss, and the whole visual thing blew me away. So I always told people, Buddy Rich made me want to play drums, but Peter Criss made me want to play drums in front of people. Right? I mean, it's totally two different themes, So it was all of those guys first, and then as I grew and as I discovered Dave Lombardo and Slayer had just come out, I was like, I want to do that. And then from there it was Napalm Death, which is nothing but loved it. I was like, man, I want to do that. So I just kept stepping up the ladder through all this crazy music, and like I said, it didn't really exist. I kind of grew up with the scene, so. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have a favorite player per se. I mean, all you guys are all my favorite players. Drummers everywhere. Thank you. You know what I mean? Seriously. I mean, if you play, I dig it. It's just the way I am. I dig it. Go. Bye. I'll get you. Go.
Going back to the tape thing, so Hate Eternal is probably my favorite death metal band, and the I Monarch record's probably my favorite one.
All right. Okay. Thanks.
That album has something to it that these other death metal bands don't have, and I'm trying to figure out, aside from the music and the performance being ridiculously great, is it the fact, so that album you guys did to tape and you didn't punch at all?
No edits. None. Zero.
So that's probably...
That's the difference.
Yeah. No, that's insane.
That's the difference.
Because you feel the integrity of the musician on there, and you feel...
Yeah, absolutely.
The animalistic nature of everybody, you hear it. You don't hear it on other records.
John and I were talking about this earlier, too. I think that Eric and I, in particularly, had a fire that a lot of guitar player and drummer don't have, I mean, John has it with Paul. You guys have been playing together a long time.
2000.
There's a fire there. There are guys that have it, but... a lot of it just, him and I had a very similar vision about what it was that we wanted to accomplish and what we wanted to say as a band, and we were very clear in that directive, and I think that made a big part of that happen as well, It was just no compromise,
Yeah, that's vocals too and everything.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun.
Shout out to you guys.
Thank you, yeah. There's something about doing it that way. Like I said, I'll live with the mistakes. I don't care.
Yeah, no, totally.
I don't care that I mess up. I mess up every time I sit down and play drums. It's not a big secret,
To enforce that, I don't hear any mistakes.
Well, I mean, you probably don't. I do.
Yeah.
Like, anytime we're playing, we hear, oh, God, screw that up. Oh, I messed that up. It's just nature because you're there. Funny story, Virgil Notty's a good friend of mine, and Virgil, he thinks he sucks. It's like, really? He's like, I'm from another planet. He's like, oh, I can always be better. It's like, I'm not the drummer here in my head. And, so you never know about people, You never know where anybody stands in their own skin and their own playing. Right? All right, thank you.
Just as far as playing, do you have any tricks to make a single bass kit sound like a double bass kit, or just have double bass drum?
I mean, yeah, double pedal is fine. I always find I just feel more balanced on a double bass kit, because what ends up happening is you get on a double pedal, and all of a sudden your right leg becomes the center of your kit, and then to play your floor tom, you're literally your spine is going. So from here, I don't have to turn my spine. Everything's it's balanced. It's right down the middle. So I've always just preferred two kick drums. I mean, you can set up a double pedal like that, offset which is what I do when I don't have another bass drum available. I'll just off-center it.
But as far as just one bass drum and one single pedal, anything you can do, fills-wise and beats-wise,
I mean, hand foot, single stroke. You can always replicate double bass or doubles. That kind of thing. But otherwise, it's just for me, it's just like sheer muscling it out, because I've been doing it so long, it comes easy now. But yeah, I mean, any of that type of stuff. I used to practice the early Motley Crue records when I first started hearing double bass in songs, like the song like Red Hot, for example, if anybody knows that song. But it starts, the groove is, I didn't have a double pedal or another bass drum, so I would just do that until I worked my foot fast enough where I could actually play it one-footed or left-footed or whatever, And I've never been a big practicer. I know that sounds horrible. all the practice I would ever do, I would do while I was playing my kit or while I was playing music. So if I wanted to work on, I mean, to me, a click track is boring. You know, just to sit there with the click. But if I wanted to work on something, like I'd put on a song, you know, something like maybe Back in Black or something like that. So if I wanted to work on, you know, right? I would use that opportunity of music to like, oh, let me work on my left foot a little bit. Or if I wanted to play double bass. Yeah, I mean, I would just kind of play. Now, that's just an example, but I would rather play and practice the music than I would a click. It's just boring, and I've never done that. And any of the practicing that I ever really did was always in my band. I know you can attest to this too, man, because like, it's hard to practice this type of thing. The only way you can, I tell people all the time, the guys that ask, well, how do I get faster? I say, play fast. Seriously, I mean, no amount of playing slow is ever going to help you play fast. I don't care what anybody says. That's the biggest bunch of nonsense when people say, oh, you got to start slow. I mean, you do for certain things, but for this, your body is never going to answer your needs if you're not telling it, this is what I want you to do. It's the same thing as like weightlifting. You can't just decide one day that I'm going to do bench 400 pounds because you've practiced lifting 10. You know, it's not the same thing. So what I suggest is people to try to push themselves and play fast and then go back and play slow. Right? Because you go back and play slow, you start to figure out the timing and the space between the notes a little easier, but if you play fast, you're telling your body, okay, this is how I need you to perform. You know, and you won't get that on a practice pad at 210 hoping that you'll reach 230. It just doesn't work. Which is why that's the most single asked question. Anytime I go anywhere, whether it's online or whether it's in clinics, the most asked question is, how do I get faster? Everybody hits a brick wall. You know, it's wrong information. Plain and simple. Anyway, that was a tangent. I'm sorry.
What's your take on the super snare blast beat? I saw you guys going left and the right. What's your technique on that beat?
It changes.
Okay.
You know, here's another thing. We start talking about technique. I say, yeah. You need it. You know what I mean? I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. There was a certain period of time in Hater Tunnel where we were coming and we were opening with like one of our fastest songs. And I would sit around and I would warm up and I would, jog up and down the stairs and get sweating before anything. And when I would come up and I would start playing and then I would get like 8 or 10 bars into the song and realize I'm not going to make it through the song. What do you do? It requires a technique change, right? So when anybody says what type of technique, is all of them. Everything that you can incorporate into your playing, because you never know what's going to happen. You know, you may get to a point where you can't hear yourself very well, and you're like, and stuff it's not feeling right, so you have to adjust, right? You can't just rely on like, I'm going to be fingers, or I'm going to be all wrist, or I'm going to be whatever. You kind of have to be able to navigate around all of those techniques to make it happen. You know, especially this type of stuff is very physical. You know, I do know that, like I said, going back to what I said earlier about having a tendency to bash. That's one thing that I need to try to fix. But it seems like when I lighten up and I start like pulling back a little bit, I lose my tone. So I would have to figure out a way to like, how am I going to learn to hit harder? Well, not necessarily hit harder, but to have more consistent volume. So I've started noticing different things about the drumstick itself. And like the way that it sounds, depending on your grip, right? There's 1,000,001 ways to hit a drum, right? Okay, here's 2. Here's one. Right? Here's another. That sounded like 2 different drums. You know what I mean? That's all grip. 90% of your sound comes from right here. So I started learning that if I keep that stick really open, that I would get more volume. Because the stick itself is resonating. Zzz, zzz, I can feel it, when I start clamping down on it. But there is a need for clamping down on it. Sometimes when I have earplugs in, that sound gets to be too, and it kind of goes away. So I have to figure out, okay, how am I going to change my technique, change my sound You know what I mean? So this is all like, mental stuff, things that you don't really get on a pad, or you get that by playing and having experience with other players. Here's another different thing. I've noticed sometimes you'll see me do this. A lot of guys in videos or wherever when I'm playing, and that happened because I learned that when I have earplugs in, like I said, that snare drum sound goes away. Let me see if it. Yeah, I mean that's good enough. So when I hold this stick open, it's got this nice kunk, kunk, kunk kind of sound. The moment I mute it, the pitch goes up, right? Because you're adding more mass to the stick because you put your finger on it. But the actual pitch goes up. That transfers to the drum as well. So I started putting my finger on top of the stick because it would make the snare drum sound a little more pointy, and it was just enough. You know what I mean? So I could tell where I was at, and I could actually hear myself. So you need to have all of these different type of techniques, to bring into your playing. Again, it's all about personal preference of what it is you're trying to do with your playing, right? But as far as any specific techniques, no. I mean, Moeller is a big part of it for me. Feeling the ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or wherever those accents are at for me, and it transfers to the left hand as well. I'll just try to straighten it out because I don't want my snare to go I want it to stay consistent. But it's all trial and error. Just paying attention.
Does that change with the miking, the volume, like as far as what you're hearing?
I try not to let it. I'm trying to push my sound as much as I can because again, like kick can be mic'd and it can be coming through the monitor. That doesn't mean that the shock wave from that drum is hitting my audience. So yeah, I can lighten up and rely on the PA, but I would rather rely on me to push that sound out to you guys. So it's just something I've been doing with my technique lately. I've just been trying to like I said, not play harder, but just play more consistently, be more aware of my volumes when I'm playing slow, and more aware of my volumes when I'm playing fast, and kind of make them meet in the middle. Yeah.
You were saying the songs you opened with, your friend had sent you. What's your process for getting those in your hands? Like, you listen to them a bunch of times.
Yeah.
A lot of scrolling back on the audio to figure out what he's doing.
Well, with him, we actually played them in real time. So he showed me all of that stuff. Okay, so here's this riff. Yeah. So that even took longer, because I like getting stuff from a guy with a click, and so I can internalize it and listen to the song. I process quicker that way than I do sitting with somebody and learning it, But that's how we kind of did all of that stuff. I was just in a room and we shredded it.
So you got to jam out on some of the riffs.
Yeah, we played the riffs first, like each riff. Okay, here's this riff, and then this is how we're going to kind of do it. We kind of built all of that stuff together. Sometimes a guy get me a track and it's crazy and it's all gridded out to a click. I just did this thing called Band Whore with love that name. And there's a reason for the name. This guy Jim Ross, he's got about 60 songs that he's going to put on this release, right? And there's literally 10 or 15 drummers, 10 or 15 guitar players, 10 or 15 bass players, singers, all of this stuff. So the name makes sense, Band Whore, because they're all guys from other bands. So he's taking this guy from that band, taking this guy from that band, and he's putting together this large, library of music. And his stuff was probably the most difficult crap that I have ever recorded. It is so off the charts. It's so ridiculous. I mean, it took me months to listening to it and just getting the changes. And just, like I said, I don't like to punch in. I have a recording studio at home, so I can record myself anytime I want, but I don't like doing it. If I have to, I will. But so I sat there and I woodshedded that stuff, just listening and listening and listening. If I click, and just learned it like that. And I would come in every day and get as far as I could. All right, I give up. Come back the next day and I would have a little bit more of it, and then a little more and a little more. So I guess it's the same type of process that any of you guys would go about, writing or learning music. Sometimes I'll chart stuff out. Especially if I listen to it and I think I have it well enough, I'll still write the changes down when I'm recording and have it somewhere close by. Just if I get weird, I can go, all right, I know where I'm at, kind of vibe. And then the more you play it, it just becomes muscle memory at that point. All of that stuff, muscle memory. I actually hadn't even played those songs probably since maybe July. I was sitting at Alex's place today, just refreshing in my mind, just making sure that my muscle memory still knew them.
You played through them 2 days ago. I was there. Don't lie, man.
Well, I played through it once. I played through each one of them, but it's like one of those things where it's like long as I'm confident in my muscle memory, I'm usually all right, with that kind of thing. So for me, it turns into not necessarily learning the song, but learning the muscle memory that goes along with the tune. If that makes any sense.
So you're trying to do it the same every time. It's like
No, I'm not that kind of player. Every time I sit down and play a song, it's different somehow. Now, the structure itself, if it's blast beat, skate beat, double bass, whatever, that all stays the same, but the color, it's always changing. I've never been like a Neil Peart type player where everything's got to be exactly the same. That's not me. I'm not that guy. I'm more of like
I was wondering, I was wondering to what extent fills stay in there and stuff.
Right. I mean, they're similar and they're close.
Okay.
Like one time I might go, no, another time I may go. It just depends on what's in the brain at the time.
Okay.
It
It was very melodic, like you said. It was really fantastic use of the cymbals.
Oh, thanks.
So cool.
Thanks.
So cool.
I appreciate that. That means a lot. That's always been something I've kind of been into, like trying to somehow or another. There's another thing we were talking about earlier today too. Like most of the records that I've ever recorded, it was basically learn the song and record it. There were no vocal parts or anything there, so it ended up turning out that I was rewriting my parts on tour because now I was like, I know the song. So that was always something that as soon as I heard a vocal line, I would try to pick out, I'm always trying to find, my way into other people's parts, whether it's vocals or whether it's guitar or my bass player or whatever. I'm always like leaking myself into their stuff,
That's what keeps it fresh, though, right?
I think.
Instead of the same repetitive thing.
Right. Yeah, man.
Do you always use the exact same setup, same symbol locations when you tour
Nah.
and mix it up? No?
Nah.
Okay.
I changed my configuration like underwear, man.
It looks like you have them just plugged in your memory. When it's
Yeah, well, what's funny too, because I'm sitting here, I do have like specific things worked out for some of these songs, and a lot of it requires 3 hi-hats and a couple of more splashes, and I'm sitting here like, as that part's coming up, I'm looking around the kit going, okay, that's that symbol, that's that, so I'll figure out a way to make it work, but I usually have a lot more toys. I like sound sources. Like Andy. You got sound sources on your kit, man. Oh my gosh. All right, what?
Okay, here's my question. I first saw you on YouTube,
Okay, yeah.
and you did a drum solo from YouTube.
Yeah.
It was one of the wildest drum solos.
The one with the red background you're talking about? Is
Yeah.
that the one? Yeah. That was one of the first ones that showed up.
The Peisty shirt solo.
Yeah, well, it was.
That's what we call it.
Yeah, the Feisty Shirt solo. That was actually a song that I had with one of my local bands at the time. I was just kind of playing through the drum part. Wankery. But yeah, that's so long ago now. Oh my gosh. Like 18 years. I can't believe it when I did that or whatever, Long time.
So, you still doing that drum solo?
Not really. Again, muscle memory. Give me a minute. Let me think in my head and see if I can figure out why I take another question over there. Yo, Alex.
And I know we talked, we were talking about this too. Your sense of dynamics, especially involving the snare being, you get a lot of power out of the snare. And I remember you talking to me saying you bring your right hand down usually on the cymbal because you find that a lot of times drummers aren't conscious that out in the audience all it sounds like is cymbals and triggers but no drums.
Right.
And I know you're very conscious of that. And
I try to be. It's
Yeah.
tough though. That's hard to do, man. That's like,
And so, and I know, and you were saying that you consciously bring your right hand down and bring your left hand up, and that's something. Is that something you'd recommend drummers practice to get their blast more?
There's an interesting exercise in my book actually where you swell the volume of each hand. So if you're playing a single string. You know what I mean? So you're swelling the volume of each side. And typically, if But anytime I have my left hand on the snare when I'm blasting, it's definitely going down at a harder rate than the right hand is. You know what I mean? Because I'm trying to keep my cymbals under control a little bit, but I'm trying to get that, up here like a face hugger from Alien. So I'm trying to make that be the predominant thing in the kit. So yeah, I will do that a lot.
And the other thing, and I remember because we were watching those videos of Niels Fjellstrom with Dark Funeral.
Oh, he's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember we were checking, and he was similar. What's interesting, him on the snare was mostly fingers,
right?
And then using the same molar technique, but the toms were all wrists, and it seemed like a different approach to it, but it was getting a similar result.
Well, you can get away with fingers on the snare a good bit, There, it doesn't sound
Yeah.
So if you can, transition from there to the toms and have that volume be consistent, that's like really important to me as well. It's like there's a lot of drummers that I know that I go see, and they're really consistent, but when it comes getting up here, it's almost like they just throw the stitch down and just go, just rake them across the drums. It's not, you're not hearing each individual, note. And that's one thing that he is really, really good at. Like every stroke is like you hear it and feel it,
Yeah, it sounded. I mean, it sounded triggered when
right.
you played for me. So that was, and I know you. And when we listened to it outside as well, it was his consistency between each instrument was very balanced.
Yeah,
so
totally.
That was, and I know we talked about that too. That's
and that
something.
might change depending on the type of music you're playing. I mean, you don't want to be that consistent if you're you're doing avant-garde jazz or whatever, or even like blues shuffles and all this other stuff. You don't want it. You got to have dynamics. If you applied the same dynamic style to blues, you're going to get fired. So, that's just the way it goes. Right? You
Let's hear it then.
Brian?
I did, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sort of a different question now, but how do you deal with messing up, if you ever do?
I mess up, like I said, at least every other bar.
So during a live performance like this, say we're gonna make it out with a band at a huge show behind stage or something. Does it ever throw you off, making certain faces or kind of throw your head off?
Here's the thing, man. And this is going to get deep for a minute, right? But I think this has more to do with how confident you are as a person instead of a drummer. You know what I mean? So, I don't care if I mess up. I don't care. Because here's the thing: if anybody can do it better, they're more than welcome to come do it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because as a human being, I do pretty good. So I know that about myself. I'm confident in that way, so I don't care if I mess up. I know I'm capable of this crap. I know I can do it. But sometimes there's factors out of your control. Go to Bogota. Okay, go to Bogota, Colombia, and try to play this stuff. You know what's different about Bogota, Colombia? It's 8,000 feet in the air. Good luck getting oxygen. So then when you start talking about technique don't freaking matter. Because no amount of technique is going to help you deal with being, 8,000 feet in the air. I know I can do this, but I might not be able to do it there, and there's a good reason for that. Hydration, that's another thing, man. Water, if I do not have water, I can't do this. Which is why I don't drink before I play, is why I don't eat a lot of stuff to have a bunch of blood in my stomach digesting food, because for me, that part of it, the hydration part of it is very important. So if I'm not hydrated, I don't play well. But it doesn't bother me because I know I can do it. That's just me. I can't. You can't expect everybody to be like that. And again, I think that has something more to do with your insight and who I ask this question a lot of people, and a lot of people can't answer it. It's who are you? Really, realistically, who are you? Not a lot of people can answer that. As much as I've asked that question all around the world, and it has nothing to do with being a player or any of that, but deep down, what's in there? Who are you? That's something a lot of people can answer. Right? I'm confident in the fact that I know who I am as a player. I know what I'm capable of, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. Big deal. Who cares? It's all good.
Eric, can you talk about the Dream Theater audition at all?
Yeah, that was fun. We had a good time. I got to be honest though, man. Those guys didn't the crew and everything. They were like deer in headlights, man, without Mike. They were, man. They were like, I mean, that whole audition, it was so laid back and so like chill that we started. Like Mangini was first, right, and I was second on the first day. Okay, so Mangini's playing, and Petrucci comes out after they get done. We talk for a minute, and he's like, "Hey, man, we got a deli tray or whatever." He's like, "Oh, cool." So we go in there. It's this nice big spread. We're eating, and like I'm talking to John more about his guitar rig and playing his new signature guitars more like we're even thinking about anything, So it just kind of like our hang turned into an audition that basically the whole crew forgot to record. Which is why I have no audio. I mean, the cameras were running. It was like really weird, about that. But they literally, somebody didn't do their job, so I didn't get the audio on my part of it. So when you go back and look at the little documentary thing that they made, that's why the sound is not very good for mine, because they simply just like were, oh, you guys are oh, okay, yeah. And by then we were like pretty much like done jamming. I had a lot of fun playing with them. They're like playing their songs. They adapted really well to everybody. That's one thing that every drummer says. Like they as musicians adapted really well to everybody's playing. Because I mean, honestly, playing their songs, it felt like we've been playing together a good while. It was really comfortable playing with them. Some of the ideas that Jordan were throwing out were like so bizarre and whack, and like he was, intentionally they're trying to trip people up, And that guy's a genius. So yeah, he's writing stuff and throwing time signatures out that are so bizarre and so unnatural and put together that it was just like you're just being complicated for being complicated. I was just like, I ain't even gonna bother. Like you just sit here and expect somebody to just spit that out. Like, come on, man. My whole thing with that was, this is a funny story too. How much time we got? Okay. This is hilarious. You guys like this. Driving on vacation with my wife, we're going up to South Carolina to see my folks. And I usually don't like to answer my phone when I'm on vacation. I kind of turn it off and just forget about it. So we stop and pull off and get gas, and I turn my phone, I look at my phone, I turn my ringer off, and I pull it up, and there's like 43 missed calls. So I'm like, hell is going on? They're like, the house burned down? Like, I start freaking out, like calling. And then, man, it's drummers I hadn't heard from, and like, I mean, it's my best friends, and it's drummers I haven't heard from in 10 or 15 years, and all these people, and every message, I swear to God, was like, hey, dude, did you hear? And my porto's had a drink here. You know anybody in their camp where I could possibly get a gig? I mean, like, every single phone call. And I'm like, oh my God, this is hilarious. And my wife and I are like laughing about it because it's like literally guys I haven't talked to in years, and like some other guys that I just talked to the day before. It's like, man, I'd love to get on a gig. You know anybody in that circle of people? Which I didn't. Didn't know anybody in there. I mean, I knew Portnoy a little bit, but he was like the only guy that I'd ever met in any of those guys. So I didn't know like any of the management or any of those people or anything in that circle. So we're laughing about it, and all week long this is happening, all week long. About halfway through the week, my wife, we got serious for a minute. I don't know how this happened because we're never serious. We were having dinner, and she says, and we were talking about it again. She said, "What are they going to do when they call you?" I said, "Are they going to call me?" And again, I told her, I just know the same circle of people. We don't know, blah 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 blah. I don't know, really. Why would they call me? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. She said, "All right, well, you better get a plan together." Driving home the next week, there's the call. Weird, right? And at first, I was like, I wasn't interested in it because I'm not really a big Dream Theater fan. I appreciate it, The only exposure I've ever really had for Dream Theater was working in a drum shop and seeing Mike's videos, right? So, for me, and particularly that year, because I had a really good year with my snakes. I breed snakes. Well, I don't breed them. I let the snakes. But I had a really, really good year that year. I mean, better than I've had since. Like a really good year. So it was like this question of like, man, dude, I don't think that I'm into it, And at that point, I'd already kind of turned down some other bands and stuff. And Hallie said to me, my wife, she's like, look, Dream Theater asked you to audition. You got to audition. That's whether you want to get it or not. You have to do it because you can't have this reputation of being a guy that people calls and you're not interested, or your phone won't ring, nobody will call you, She had a point, so I agreed to do it. You know, it was just one of those things where, and I told those guys straight up front, I was like, guys, you know, thank you for the opportunity. It means the world to me or whatnot, but it's, you know, I'm not really into it. You know, I'm really comfortable with what I'm doing with myself and, you know, where I'm at in my life. And just to go back out on the road again for 16 months at a time, I don't know, man. I toured for 20 years, you know. It was just a big undertaking, you know. But the experience was amazing. You know, it was cool. Like, I couldn't believe that I'm still honored to this day that we even thought about it. You know? And John, it was funny because John's like, dude, what are you talking about, man? You know, like, I've been listening to Hey Control for years, but I love your playing. You know, I was like, wow, who knew? You know? But I don't know, it was just one of those things. And then, like, when the whole documentary thing came out and just the way they presented everybody, because a lot of drummers were kind of pissed with it. Like some of the other guys that I was listening to, you know, and like it painted kind of everybody in a weird position, you know. Again, going back to this thing, like, whatever. You know, I mean, it was what it was, and that's that. I don't got to prove anything to anybody at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I guarantee you, if I tried to show any of those guys that first song I played, they'd be hung up too. You know what I mean? So, it's one of those kind of things where it's like I'm truly appreciative of it. It was a great experience.
What was life like on the road for 20 years? What's that experience?
Tough. Oh, it'd be fun. Don't get me wrong. Loads and loads of fun. You know, I would not take it back for the world. I may have done things a little bit differently here and there, but the experiences I've had doing it, I would never take back.
Were you married when you were on the road?
Yeah. Yeah.
Worked out?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well, are there any children in here? Well, you're still old enough to know. My wife would say to me, and this was hilarious, she said, you know, yeah, you're out on tour, you don't know anybody, you know, it's got to be hard. She goes, I'm at home, I know everybody. Yeah, that made me go, ooh. So that always kept me like, you know, on the straight and narrow, because she's right. It's much easier for her to have something going on than it is me. You know, so that, you know, it worked. It's good. Good thing. Can I play another song or two?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw you earlier. I'm sorry.
Apart from metal, what other genres do you experiment with?
A lot of stuff actually. I still like to remain a gigging drummer. I live down close to Miami, so you know there's lots of different styles of stuff down there, and I get calls to do different things here and there. I wouldn't say I'm a great player in any genre, really. I mean, I'm okay, but I always have stuff to learn and things to work on. But that's the only way really you get better is throwing yourself in those situations. I was playing with JP Swords and the Blues Hounds for a good minute, you know, doing Texas Shuffle type stuff. And, just some like simple kind of jazz and different things. And then every once in a while, a friend of mine in a Latin band, he's subbing for some other bigger artists, and he'll call me and ask me to go sub in his Latin band sometimes. And I was terrified about that because you know how the Latins are, man. Like, yeah, but every time I've gone, they're like, man, for Gringo, man, you play all right. I just kind of barely do what I need to do to get around. I try to make it feel good, and I try to stay authentic to what the style is, you know. So, and I don't try to overstretch it and do things that's going to get me kicked off of a gig, you know. It's like I'm smart enough to know at least that, you know. So, I mean, I get around. I play pretty good, you know, amount of different things here and there, which is fun. I wish I had some more stuff like that, you know, to play. It's just hard finding guys to record that kind of stuff so I can, with a click, so I can play over it. It's off, you know, finding these guys, because they're all, you know, based off of feel, and it's, you know, it's really hard to get them to come off that stuff. But I like all styles of music.
Also, real quick before you start the next songs, will there be any guest appearance, maybe a dual drum jam with you and John tonight, or no?
Hey, yeah. We got another kid. Well, no, we can just trade off here.
No.
Oh, come on.
John,
We get Alex
John.
up here. Alex is another monster. Everybody know Alex Cohen? Yeah, he's a monster.
Thank
a bunch
you.
of monsters in the room tonight. So.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, man. Alex I met years ago, man. Like, what, 10 years ago? 12 years ago?
12 years ago.
How old are you this year?
28.
All right, so going back to that, you know, he was growing up and playing, and man, this how far he's come over the years has been crazy. You And I love that. I love seeing drummers like get good and get crazy. You know, nothing tickles me more than going to see like some of my friends and they're just playing like off the hook, and it's like, man, it just makes me feel so good. You know, to see that. I love it. You know, it's a cool thing.
To be fair, I'm also on that St. Vitus show, and I'm well aware that I am highly outclassed. So I completely get I'm about to get stomped on.
This kid plays double strokes like with his feet like Virgil and stuff, like all types of rudiments and craziness, man. It's good. It's come a
Much
long way, man.
appreciated, sir. Thank you.
You're knocking it out for sure. All right, so and if you guys look, we'll hang a little bit after too. I don't know how
Yeah, we're good.
What do we got?
Just another song and we'll wrap it up.
Okay, yeah. So we'll chill a little bit.
Let's get some door prizes, so don't run out, guys. All right? Keep those away.
Hey, do me a favor. All right. If you got an extra $10 in your pocket, buy some sticks on the way out. Buy a drum head or something.
Roddy sticks we got.
So support Dennis, man, because like again, thank you.
The company's obviously DW, Remo.
Yes, DW, Remo, my Axis stuff, Vader. We got to thank those guys, of course. Yeah, they, these companies, they put a lot into this type of thing to make this stuff happen, and it's I'm very appreciative, and we all are, Dennis's, and I mean everybody that could get to have an opportunity to do this, it's a good thing. All right, so let's see, what am I going to play? Gonna play like one of these other tech tracks. It's not quite as complicated as some of the other stuff, but it's pretty neat. Yeah, this was okay. I'm gonna try it. let me change. I'll be right out.
I'll get a couple of these dog lights.
Good work, sir.
I know I gotta get up.